Imagine spending over a decade in prison for crimes you never committed. Locked away, your youth stolen, your reputation destroyed, all because of a justice system that got it wrong. This was the reality for Raphael Rowe. Today, Raphael Rowe is a respected journalist and presenter, known worldwide as the face of the Netflix series Inside the World's Toughest Prisons. He travels the globe, exposing the realities of incarceration and giving a voice to the voiceless. But before he could tell other people's stories, he had to survive his own. So how did an innocent young man become one of the most famous victims of wrongful conviction in Britain? And how did he turn one of life's greatest injustices into a story of resilience, redemption, and impact? Raphael George Rowe was born in 1968 in South London. His parents were of Jamaican descent, part of a generation that faced both the hope of a better life in Britain and the harsh realities of racial prejudice. Growing up in a working-class community, Raphael's childhood was shaped by resilience. Like many young boys, he had big dreams. He wanted to travel, to see the world beyond the concrete estates that surrounded him. But those ambitions were often met with the barriers of poverty and discrimination. In school, he was sometimes labeled not for his potential, but for the color of his skin. Britain in the 1970s and 80s was no stranger to racial tensions, and Raphael often felt the sting of being judged before he had even spoken a word. Yet despite those challenges, Raphael was, in so many ways, just an ordinary young man. He loved music, he loved sports, he had friends, he had a family who cared for him. His story could have been like anyone else's. But the world around him was about to change, and a series of brutal crimes on the outskirts of London would soon cast an innocent young man into the role of a criminal, a role he would spend years trying to escape. The summer of 1988, Britain was gripped by fear. Along the M25 motorway, the ring road encircling London, a wave of brutal crimes shocked the public. Drivers and passengers were targeted in violent robberies, and in one attack, a man was murdered in cold blood. The crimes were described in the press as savage and barbaric. The attackers were said to be ruthless, masked figures, terrorizing people at random. Nobody felt safe. Under mounting pressure from the media and the public, the police were desperate to find those responsible. Politicians demanded answers. Communities demanded justice. And in the rush to deliver it, the focus quickly turned from facts to finding suspects at any cost. The climate was one of panic. Every day the headlines grew louder, painting a picture of violent criminals on the loose. But in their determination to solve the case quickly, investigators would make choices that would destroy innocent lives. In December 1988, the police announced they had their suspects, three young black men from South London, Raphael Rowe, just 20 years old, Michael Davis, and Randolph Johnson. To the authorities, they were the perfect fit for the crimes that had terrorized the public. But there was a problem. There was no DNA, no fingerprints, no weapon that linked them to the crime.
Serious as it got, the evidence the police said they had at the time had come from witnesses. And one of those descriptions was that the main perpetrator was white, had blue eyes and fair hair. The two black men, me and my co-defendant, who had dreadlocks, had brown eyes. The other co-defendant was an African guy, so he had even darker skin and short black hair. When the police discovered the car that was found at the scene of the murder and carried out forensic examination.
His youth stolen, his freedom gone, he would spend the next 12 years behind bars for crimes he did not commit. At just 20 years old, Raphael Rowe entered a world that would test him in every possible way. Prison was in 2000, after appeals to the European Court of Human Rights, which ruled his trial unfair due to withheld evidence. In the Court of Appeal, Rowe's conviction was overturned and he was released. Critical issues included the prosecution's failure to disclose that a key witness was a police informant with a criminal history, and the lack of forensic evidence linking Rowe to the crimes. Notably, the Court of Appeal stated that the quashing was not a finding of innocence, though Rowe vehemently maintained his innocence and highlighted the racial biases in the case. Rowe is celebrated for breaking barriers in journalism and for his unwavering commitment to exposing injustice. He continues to host Netflix prison series, speak on criminal justice issues, and contribute to BBC programs like The One Show. Inmates and officers alike. He was isolated, labeled a monster, treated as though the guilty verdict had stripped away his humanity. Violence was a constant threat. Every day was a fight to keep his dignity and his Lee.